In the world of gaming, some people, like the casual players, take it as a means to either relieve stress or pass time, while others go the extra mile to be so good that in some cases they might get paid for playing. But not every Gamer Boy 64 or Aimbot 101 in Game ID is actually playing the game for either reason. Some of them might just be trying to pass on the thoughts of SCP-5167 to whomever they come in contact with online. Greetings, my like-minded comrades. My name is Detective Nicolette, and after several hours of failed attempts, I've finally come in contact with the test subject SCP-5167. But before I go into the details on what happened, you first have to understand what the subject really is all about. SCP-5167 is a Keter-class entity that is commonly found in the video game Among Us. The SCP Foundation has also made it clear to their web crawlers that this subject is one of their top online priorities, and any mention of a potential sighting of SCP-5167 within the Among Us community must be reported immediately to the Chief Director, Steve, the man in charge of containing this subject. In the event of a confirmed sighting or case, all direct witnesses must be apprehended by the Foundation guards, and all evidence linking the subject to the case must be removed from the platform in question. Director Steve also advised that all apprehended witnesses must be held and examined for any symptoms of SCP-5167 for a 30-day period. If no symptom is recorded within this period, the witnesses are given a mestic and released under the cover story that they had a mental breakdown. But in the event that the witness exhibits any symptom of SCP-5167, the individual must be rebranded as SCP-5167-A and carried to the Site 22 of the SCP Foundation for further testing. Like I earlier said, SCP-5167 is an entity which the Foundation recorded only to manifest as a player in the online multiplayer game called Among Us, and it goes by the username Phonos. The subject is known to randomly join multiplayer lobbies within the game and participates in the same manner as a regular player would, with the majority of its anomalous effects only becoming obvious following the initial encounter. During this first encounter, the subject tends to communicate with other players using the in-game chat function, and it was also observed to do so in lengthy diatribes, which has no ties to any of the other players, nor should it concern them in whatever way. Players who interact with test subject SCP-5167 in-game in any way will eventually begin to exhibit symptoms of paranoia and Kagrad delusion. The true intensity of these symptoms does vary from person to person, but the first recorded cases showed significant symptoms enough for them to engage in acts of an assumed self-defense against families or friends they thought were imposters. It was also recorded that symptoms may persist for a period which was originally believed to be several months. However, the Foundation later changed that data to 1 or 2 weeks after several testing and observations. SCP-5167 was first discovered by the Foundation on October 6, 2020, after a period where the mere thought of the player called Phonos was dubbed an urban legend by the Among Us community. And even though the public interest on the subject died down fairly quickly, Foundation web crawlers were still able to flag several accounts that may have come in contact with SCP-5167. The Foundation tracked these accounts with the help of a learning computer called PSI-2 or Meeville. After being taught the behavior of Phonos, Meeville was assigned to monitor thousands of ongoing Among Us games and lobbies until Phonos was encountered. Once this was done, Meeville was also tasked with tracking whichever player was in the lobby at the time of Phonos' arrival. Meeville also recorded the conversations Phonos might have had with these players, as a means to narrow down the list of potential SCP-5167-A. All attempts made by the Foundation to track the individual behind SCP-5167 have all proven to be futile. Not even a highly skilled hacker like myself was able to track down the culprit in charge of Phonos, and as much as I have to admit it, I must confess that whoever or whatever is behind Phonos is very good at staying anonymous, because every IP address taken from that account all led to a deserted home address in rural parts of Greece. At first, my curiosity led me on a trip to Greece. It was then I discovered that the location was a radioactive site which the government uses for some classified experiments, to which, if you remember from our previous log, The subject made mention of a nuclear explosion that occurred somewhere in Greece. And although Phonos' words didn't really make much sense in that context of the conversation, he did point out that the existence of a radioactive site in Greece that not even inhabitants of a nearby location knows about. Having this knowledge in mind, I decided to pull out recorded conversations that the Foundation had on test subject SCP-5167, and out of all of them, I found several which talked about possibilities, myths, entity existence, and the SCP Foundation itself. Logs B to D are pretty self-explanatory, with B referring to the principle of infinite possibilities proposed by Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger, C referring to the gods of Greek mythology, and D talks about an entity born of lightning called Storm-born. However, you'll notice that I was present in Log E, and the Men in Black message that Phonos made mention of is something I used to describe the SCP Foundation with, and I've also made mention of it in my previous video as well. Although I'm not sure, I do believe that whoever is behind SCP-5167 not only knew that I was present in the lobby, but they also knew my identity as well. However, this very thought does raise the question though, how exactly do they have access to this amount of information? Why do they use their powers to cause harm? And how do they make people go paranoid? Well, I do believe the answer lies within the game itself. Among Us is a social deception game where crewmates have to compete their tasks or catch the imposter before the said imposter either kills them all or sabotages the game. Bearing that in mind, I do believe that Phonos uses the idea of the game itself and his lengthy text to hypnotize players into thinking what they know is wrong. Hence, the paranoia. The most brutal case involving SCP-5167-A occurred with the 17-year-old Tim Kroll, a promising member of his high school basketball team. Although the name of the school is withdrawn from the log, it did indicate that the incident happened in a remote town in the US. During a training break at the school's basketball court on October 25, 2020, Tim decided to pass the time by playing Among Us on his phone. Then, all of a sudden, he started yelling at his friends saying they were imposters and he had never seen them before. At first, his friends thought it was a joke, and that he was playing around like he usually does. And that was before Tim got up and shoved both his friends backwards. "Calm down, Tim," one of his friends said. "Why don't we get the school doctor to examine you?" The other said, but Tim wasn't having either. In a paranoia-induced fury, he grabbed a pipe by and hit one of his friends right on the face, cracking his skull and killing him on the spot. Although his second friend was able to escape the same fate, he also ended up with several injuries. It took the intervention of both the students and staff before Tim was eventually subdued. Of course, the SCP Foundation got knowledge of this event and ended up taking over this case, along with a good enough cover story for the incident. Although the actual symptoms of SCP-5167 were recorded to last about 2 weeks in a person, Foundation head researcher Abrams made it clear that it may soon be a thing of the past. Using records as an analyst he got from Site-22, he confirmed that earlier cases were much more severe than recent ones. Like in the case of Tim Kroll and another called Billy Heath, who was responsible for the third-degree burns in his parents' faces with a lighter and hairspray. He then confirmed that since the potency of SCP-5167 has started to decline, starting that intensity of a full detachment from reality to delusion to paranoia has lessened in new cases. Although he isn't sure of these facts yet, he believes the anomalous effects of SCP-5167 should have died out before 2021. I personally don't think that the subject itself will go extinct because I did encounter one today, but I do believe its effects on players are on a decline. However, that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep an eye out for when we do encounter a subject, and if you encounter Phonos, I do advise you don't stick around to hear everything he has to say. That being said, perhaps I should have stayed a little longer to at least see how Phonos works, but you can never be too safe. So, what do you think? Is SCP-5167 the work of a world-class hacker and hypnotist? Or is the entity itself just a manifestation of an actual SCP subject? Share your thoughts in this comment section below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel because I have a lot more SCP subjects coming up. Till then, my friends, farewell.